Donald Trump indicted by a vote of a grand jury in New York. That indictment legally is under seal. Donald Trump's lawyers have been notified that he is indicted, and the process plays out from here. There should normally be, if you have a cooperative process, a meeting and a schedule for Mr. Trump to turn himself in, to be booked as a defendant, and for the process to go forward. This is the first time a grand jury or any prosecutorial process has indicted a former president in American history. Out on the East Coast, this is a historic day in America. March 30th, 2023 is the day that a former president was indicted for the first time. Donald Trump indicted in New York by a vote of the grand jury on felony charges. The New York Times broke it. NBC has confirmed it. Trump's lawyers and Trump himself responding to it. So get ready. Strap on your legal seatbelt. We are going forward as a country that is going to deal with this and put a president on trial. Those grand jurors and the New York DA making the judgment that the evidence is there and that this is the better course than ignoring criminal evidence against a former president. We've been having this debate in many forms, many different ways for really many years of the Trump era. And now tonight, it changes. We go from the hypothetical to the actual. As I mentioned, I got some special guests standing by as part of our special coverage, but you may take a step back here and go, okay, Donald Trump actually got indicted today. Wow, that's a big deal. And if you're a fair person and you follow the law, and we have lawyers on this show talking about it, Donald Trump's still legally presumed innocent. Okay. But if they convict him at trial, Donald Trump will be a legal convict, a felon in this felony case. And he would then go and have to serve whatever sentence he's given. And Donald Trump could literally be incarcerated, be behind bars instead of running for president. That is a big deal. I don't say that as rooting for one side or the other because, again, the legal process will play out. But everyone can see the obvious stakes here. It is a huge deal. And this is not exactly where it seemed like we were headed a few months ago. We live in a world where people love to say, I saw that coming. The defendant himself was trying to predict the exact date of his arrest as if he were in charge. But back in December, for example, when I mentioned earlier in the broadcast, the Trump org was convicted as a company. That is a legal process where a company gets in trouble. And its CFO was convicted. That's Mr. Weisselberg, who is at Rikers. He was mentioned earlier in the broadcast. But Donald Trump wasn't charged with anything. So it looked like, if you take yourself back to December, it looked like Trump was getting away again. The Manhattan DA, who led this case and now has indicted Donald Trump, was right here on the beat that night. Alvin Bragg, after the Trump org conviction. And this is what he told us.
The work never stopped, and we're going to continue to do that. And there may be, I don't know, I don't want to get ahead of the facts, but there may be other moments when we can, report out publicly. In fact, I've committed to doing that when we reach a conclusion, whether that's by indictment or some other way of closing the investigation.
With regard to Mr. Trump?
With regard to Mr. Trump.
That was the DA saying that the investigation was ongoing, and they would either basically charge Trump or update that they weren't charging him. And I'll just tell you, because it's really striking here to take stock on the night that Donald Trump's indictment has broken as news. It didn't look to a lot of the legal experts like he was going forward towards a Trump indictment. We heard from a veteran of that office who clashed with Mr. Bragg, Mark Pomerantz, who basically alleged that they weren't going to go and indict Trump. We heard a lot of different things. What we can see now is that this process did continue. It did gather more facts and criminal evidence against Donald Trump. That the DA really was leading something, and, well, we won't have all the details yet until they unseal the indictment. Apparently, they got a grand jury to agree there was enough criminal evidence to charge Donald Trump. And that's why today, by the end of March, looks very different from December for those convictions, and certainly than the last few years where it seemed Donald Trump was going to continue to skate. What we're doing here, we are following something that is unprecedented, but no more. It was unprecedented to indict a former president until today, and now it's not. And that means that goes off the table, and other prosecutors may not have to wrestle with that question. We're dealing with something that is a jurisdictional priority in New York, which means national Republican politics have no impact on it. Even if a Republican takes back the White House, there will be no pardon for Donald Trump in New York because this is a local case. That may scare him, too. There are people like Steve Bannon and others who got into trouble and then got their federal pardon. There's no pardon for him here. And when you look at the other cases, we alluded them tonight. You have the January 6 investigations, which are both federal and D.C., and local in Georgia, where another local prosecutor could act because the attempted coup involved planks of alleged crimes in Georgia. And you have the classified documents case. If none of this seems normal, that's because we have been living through a prolonged state of a very abnormal time where someone who used to be president and who's currently running to be president again is caught up in so many allegations of misconduct, of crimes, of attacks on democracy itself. And so everything changes now. I mentioned this once a little earlier tonight. We will remember March 30th. It will be marked in the history books. The future is unwritten, whether it is marked as the beginning of a trial that sent someone to prison or the beginning of a process that cleared his name. We can't tell you that, and anyone who tries to prejudge that might be getting ahead of the process. But it is certainly the end of a period where Donald Trump was not legally held to account. And today and the rest of Donald Trump's life are fundamentally different as he learns, perhaps for the very first time in his life, what it is to be completely out of control, to have to react to a government and prosecutorial system where he doesn't and his statements don't and his antics don't actually matter. Because what matters, what will matter here is what a judge says, what a jury of his peers says, not what he says or posts or anything of the like. So we're going forward on this together. It is a big and historic night.